Thank you very much for the introduction. I'd like to start my talk with asking you the questions, what characteristics make an athlete successful? And I guess the answer that we will get to this question depends on who we ask. If we ask a physiologist, then the answer is probably strength or endurance. If we ask a nutritionist, then it's nutrition. If we ask a psychologist, then it's maybe the mindset and the determination. If we ask a biomechanist, it may be technique. If we ask an engineer, it may be the equipment that the athletes use. I put technique in quotation marks because it may not be totally clear what I mean by technique. So to define that casually expressed, when I talk about technique, I mean how the athletes move. If I try to express that more in a scientific way, then I would say the specific movement or coordination pattern that athletes use in standard situations of their sport. If I say movement or coordination patterns, I mean the movements of the individual segments and how they are coordinated in a movement. In my personal opinion, technique is a very important factor. I think that there have been a lot of studies analyzing the determinants of success, for example, strength or endurance. Often technique is an overlooked contributor to these factors. And vice versa, the way we do strength training often influences a specific technique, or if we change the equipment, for example, then we know there is an adaptation and we may change the way we move. Maybe more interesting for us as researchers is, can we as researchers help athletes develop these characteristics that make them successful? And to answer that question, I tried to do a literature search. And specifically, I searched for training methods. So I searched for papers that had in their title, for example, strength training or endurance training, or I used mental training for the psychological aspects, and I used technique training. And I had a second condition, the paper had to have athlete in the abstract to make sure it's really a paper about sport and not about clinical sciences, for example. And you already see the results that I get for that search. I found 142 for strength training, 158 for endurance. For mental training, still 15. Only one had in the title technique training. And if I add performance as another search variable, then these numbers decrease, and I end up actually with 0 in technique training. So if my original assumption that technique is very important is correct, then there is a tremendous